This month I'm really excited to be working on this duet version of Bodysurfing. It's one of my favorite ukulele tracks, and this is sort of a jam version of it in the key of D minor. We're going to start by looking at the first ukulele part, which is the picking, and then we'll take a look at the strumming section. It's meant to be played with two instruments, but you can play along with the video at the beginning of this, or check out the link below for a jam track download for all of my Patreons over at patreon.com, so that you can have a recording to play along with using either part. And so let's go ahead and take a look at it right now. We're going to be using a technique that's called alternate picking to be able to clearly articulate the melody very quickly as well. To start, we're going to take our index finger and bar across on the E and the A strings on the 5th fret. Then take your pinky finger and place it on the 8th fret of the A string. So we're just going to build this little shape to start. Now the technique that I mentioned, the alternate picking, what it is it's using your middle finger and thumb to go back and forth over strings so that you're not plucking the note with just a single finger at any given time, but rather you're alternating between the two. Makes it much more efficient so that you can move much more quickly. We'll start by using our middle finger and plucking the A string right there at the 8th fret. Now as the middle finger plucks the A string here, it's going to be pretty perpendicular to the string, kind of around the sound hole. I like to be right about the back of the sound hole. I'm going to pluck that note. And then the next note I'm going to play is 5 on the E string, which should be still fretted there with your index finger. I'm going to use my thumb to pluck that. So it goes middle, then thumb. You'll notice the thumb is more in front with the middle more behind. So they're about a 45-degree angle to one another, and they can sit with the middle finger just behind the thumb, just like that. So middle, then thumb. And that looks something like this. Now from here, we're going to play 5 on the A string. And when we play that 5, we're going to take off the pinky. We're going to use our middle finger because every time we alternate, we just played with our thumb, so now we're going to use the middle finger, pluck the A string 5th fret. Then it's going to play 7 on the A, in which you're going to add your ring finger on your playing hand, your fretting hand, right there on the 7th fret of the A string. And then you're going to use your thumb, because you just used your middle prior, and the thumb will play there on the A string. So the very first 4 notes just look something like this. 8, 5, 5, 7. Now as it continues, you'll notice it plays 8 on the A string again, and we'll use our middle finger on our playing hand and our pinky finger on our fretting hand to fret it. And then we're going to do the exact same thing we did, the 5 on the E with the thumb, and the 5 on the A with the middle, then the 7 on the A with the thumb. So that entire first measure sounds and looks something like this. Now this is really tricky at first, and you're going to probably feel more comfortable doing something like just the thumb to play each one of these melody notes, or just use another finger. The reason that we're learning it this way is it's going to allow you to build up a lot more speed, because exchanging these two fingers back and forth is much more efficient and effective than just plucking with one finger at a time. Now as you're learning this, it's okay to just use the thumb or just use another finger and pluck them as you're learning the muscle memory from the fretting hand's perspective, so they can get really comfortable with the shapes and the movements there, and then move on to that other section. You can kind of think of it as cooking a pancake. You have to cook both sides of the pancake, so it doesn't really matter which side you start on as long as you're getting comfortable with, both of them. Just like as long as you cook both sides of the pancake, you're going to be good to go. Kind of a fun analogy. So again, that first measure should sound and look something like this. And again, it feels a little bit like doing this when you're first learning it. But the good news is once you can do that first part and you can do it comfortably, the other parts here are pretty easy, because the pattern, as far as what this hand does, is exactly the same for the next 3 sets, which is pretty great, or next 2 sets. The first 3 sets are all the same. All that happens is that the left hand changes and plays some different shapes, but it's going to be the same pattern of A, E, A, E, A, over and over and over. So if we look at the second measure now in addition to the first measure, you'll notice that it's the same exact thing repeated on the first half of that measure until we get to the second half, when it changes just a little bit. So the second measure starts in the same place, 8 on the A, then 5 on the E, 5 on the A, 7 on the A, 8 on the A. That's all exactly the same, but then it's going to go 7, 5, 8, all on the A string. And we'll want to continue to go back and forth with our fingers. So when we play that whole measure really nice and slow, it's going to be 8, 5, 5 on the A string, 7 on the A, 8, and then what we're going to do here is go 7, 5, 8. So it sounds like again, it's pretty tricky because there's so much going on. You'll also notice it can sometimes be difficult to do slow once you get it fast, just because you get it to muscle memory, it starts to go a little bit easier. But the whole first two measures now sound something like this when put together. Again, every time you'll notice I'm alternating with these two fingers. And that can allow me to do it much more quickly. If you watch me do it fast now, notice how these fingers seem very comfortable just going back and forth. Versus if I were to do it with my thumb, it's very, very inefficient. And if you speed it up even further, that would be very, can't quite do it at the same speed because it's just one finger making the motion instead of two. So what's great is the next section here, we're just going to bring up both bars. You'll see that's 7 3s and 5s. So it's the same basic thing, only now we're going to have our index finger barred over the E and A on the 3rd fret instead of the 5th. And we're going to stretch our pinky out to the 7th fret of the A string. We're going to start here by playing 7 on the A with our middle finger on our playing hand. And then we're going to play 3 on the E, which is built in right there. Then 3 on the A. Then 5 on the A with our ring finger, and 7 on the A with our pinky finger. Then repeat that, 3 on the E, 3 on the A, 5 on the A, then we go 7 on the A again, 3 on the E, 3 on the A, 5 on the A, and then it does the turnaround, which is going to be 7 on the A, then 5 on the A, then 3 on the A, then all the way back up to 7 on the A. At that moment, you should be playing with the thumb to set up the next measure, which will continue that alternate picking. So really, really slow, that looks something like this. Now, the next measure is exactly the same as this measure was, only down 2 frets. Every single thing stays exactly the same in terms of the intervals used. So we're going to bar across 1 now instead of 3, stretch our pinky out to 5, and then everything is the same in terms of the distance and fingers used. So we're going to start at 5, play 5 on the A, then 1 on the E, then 1 on the A, then stretch the ring finger to 3 on the A, and then 5 on the A, then 1 on the E, 1 on the A, 3 on the A, 5 on the A, 1 on the E, 1 on the A, 3 on the A, then 5 on the A, 3 on the A, 1 on the A, finally 5 on the A. So you'll notice that pattern, again, is exactly identical to the one that we just played. So that one looks and sounds something like. Now, this one's harder than the previous one because we're down here at 1, and 1 is not a very comfortable place. So one thing that I'd like to suggest is have the finger come as close as you can to the actual fret wire. The further back you are here, the harder it is to get a good connection and good fret sound. So be right up against that wire and even turn the finger a little bit so that the nail's going towards the headstock, and then draw the finger a bit towards the fret. That can really help get a good connection and make it simpler to play and not get any buzzing on those first two notes. You might notice you get that sort of sound, and it's just a matter of turning into it and fretting it a little bit more efficiently. So at this point, we go into the sort of ending of this phrase, which is super simple because all that we do is play 4 on the A string with our index finger. And as far as these fingers, it matters a little bit less, but we'll go ahead and keep doing the pattern. So we'll use our middle. And then we'll play 5 on the A string with our middle finger on our fretting hand, but our thumb on our playing hand. Then we're going to play 7 on the A string with our pinky. We'll use our middle finger up on 7. So that measure just sounds like, right? So now that's the entirety of that first run through, and it should sound something like this. Right? Now, it's really tricky because it moves so fast, and even the speed I was playing at there, even though that's slow compared to the final speed that we want, it's still fast and difficult to play. The biggest trick to being able to play this song is just careful, patient practice. Make sure that every single time you strike a string, it's the exact note that you want to strike. If you do any wasted effort where you're sort of repositioning the hands and playing the wrong note and trying to fix it, it's going to make it impossible to speed up to get to that full speed, crazy fast body surfing sound. So careful, patient practice is so important with this. But that's the whole first melody part of that. From here, what we want to look at is the first part of the solo. Now this solo section is just sort of a random little improv that I thought sounded pretty cool. And when we look at it here, the first 2 bars, we start on 2 of the C. Now, as far as our playing hand goes, we can just use our thumb now for this section. We don't have to continue using the alternate picking because this part's not fast like that intro. So we'll just use our thumb from here. We're going to start by taking our fretting hand, place our middle finger on 2 of the C, index here on 1 of the E, and we're going to only have those 2 on to start. We're going to play the thumb on the 2 of the C string, then the middle, then the index finger here on the first fret of the E, and then open on the A. So we have 2, 1, 0. Then we're going to stretch our pinky out to 5. So it sounds like. Now, if that stretch is too big for you, it's okay to lift those fingers off when you play 5. Now, the next measure here, we're going to slide our index finger up to 3 on the A, use our pinky on 7 of the A, and then our ring on 5 of the A. So the whole first 2 measures there sound like. Moving right into the next measures, you'll notice we're going to play 3 on the A, but what we want to do is we want to set it up. So we're going to bar across 3 on the E and the A strings with our index finger, because right after we play the 3 on the A, it plays the 3 on the E twice. So by doing that little mini bar there, we set it up. Then we're going to play 5 on the A, which will be the ring finger here, and then 3 on the A. So that first measure is. And then measure 12 here as we go forward. We're going to stretch the pinky up to 7 on the A, then play 8, moving up 1, back down to 7. So those 2 measures sound like this. Now this next measure is my favorite. We're going to have to build a kind of complicated chord. We're going to start here with the middle finger on 5 of the A string, And then we're going to play 6 on the E with our ring finger. And then we're going to cross our index to 5 on the C, which should build a G chord shape, only moved up. So we start there, middle finger on 5, ring on 6, index on 5 of the C. Then we'll play the 6 on the E again. And then we'll stretch our pinky out to 8 on the A string. And it's preferred to leave the fingers in position if you can. But if that's a big stretch, it's okay to have the fingers come off a little bit. It's not a big deal. Then the next measure here, we're going to play 5 on the A for 2 beats, which you'll notice is already there with the middle finger. And then we're going to play 8 on the A with the pinky for 2 beats. So those 2 measures sound like this. Now this is my favorite part. Well, I just said the other line was my favorite. It's all kind of my favorite, right? But I really love this intro line for the next set of 2 because it's going to go between 7 and 8. 8's going to be played with our pinky, 7 with our ring finger. It's going to go 7, 8, 7, and then we're going to go down to 5 with our index finger here on the A, and then back up to 7 with the ring. So that first measure is. And then the second measure, we're just going to slide our index finger down to 4 on the A string, slide it down to 1 on the A, and then open on the A. So those 2 measures sound something like this. And that whole solo section is sort of going to give you that improv-like sound. Even though it's not written with a repeat here on the tab, I really like to just repeat this section. And one of the coolest things about this song is you can repeat any of the sections. They all work together. You can intermix them, and they're very modular. It's like a Lego set that you can reposition and create all sorts of different orderings to create your own sound. Also, don't be afraid to make up your own solo for this. This is just sort of an example one that uses a few different rhythms and sounds. But you'll notice that this solo section has a lot less notes than the main melody did. And the reason for that is because we don't always want lots of notes going on. We want gaps in it. Just like when we're talking, if we talk, and never take a break, and we just keep talking and we don't stop talking and never stop, it gets a little bit old. So we want to have some natural places where we breathe and not play notes. And this section of having those spaces, it's got a lot of fast notes, but it also has a lot of space to it. So it's a fun part to play through. Now, when we go to the next section after this, this is sort of the second melody line. This part is something that I really enjoy playing. I like to use the tremolo technique with. And actually, if you check down the description below, you'll see a link to this tremolo technique, which is a really fun one. And we're not going to talk about it today, but I just wanted to mention that you can use this technique here. So I'll show you what it looks like after we play it without the tremolo. So we'll start here on measure 17. We're going to play 8 on the A with our pinky. And we'll notice we're only going to play our A string this whole section. So these 2 measures, nothing but A's being played. And we're going to play 8, and we're going to go 5 with the index finger, 7 with the ring, 8 with the pinky. And we're going to slide that pinky up to 12. Then we'll play 10 with the ring finger, and then we'll play 8 with the index finger, and then we'll play 7 with the index finger as well. And you're welcome to use your ring finger there, so you go 12, 10, 8 with the middle finger instead. But what's really important here is just getting a good feel over it. So it's okay to have the fingers slide. It's not a very efficient section. It's more about tone. So whatever fingers give you the best tone, you're going to be wanting to use. Unfortunately, usually the A string does, or the pinky doesn't give you the best tone, and that will be required to use throughout it because we're sliding so much. But those first 2 measures should sound something like this. Now, you'll notice I go into the 7, which is the start of the next measure here. And we're going to slide that index finger down to 3 on the A. Then we're going to play 5 with the ring, 7 with the pinky, slide up to 10 with the pinky, then 8 we can use our middle finger, and then 7 with our index. So those two measures sound like this. And then from here we're going to play 5 on the A string with our index finger, slide it down all the way to 1, play 3 with our ring, stretch our pinky out to 5, slide up to 8, and play 7 with the ring, 5 with the index, and then that 2-set measure sounds like this. And the final part here is we're going to play 4 on the A, then 5 on the A, then 7 on the A, just like we ended the first melody section. So 4, 5, 7, using my index, middle, and pinky fingers. All right? So that whole second melody section should sound something like this. Right? Now I mentioned before that I like to use the tremolo technique, and the tremolo technique is where you're using your thumb in a very quick pulse. And if you use that with this, it sounds something like this. Which I think is a really cool sound and really pulls a lot of this song together when you're wanting that really advanced sort of sound. And so again, check out the link in the description below for a tutorial on that technique that you can use with this. Now from here, we just repeat the main melody again, all the way through. So we play using the alternate picking again. And then to end the whole song, we just play 5 on the A and let it ring. So that's the entire ukulele 1 part. We're going to work now on the ukulele 2 part. I'll be using a different uke for it. And so as you're working with these, it can be fun to work on it with a friend so that you can create that duet. But as always, if you have any questions with this section, be sure to leave a comment down below. So let's go ahead and take a look at the strum section of Bodysurfing. What we're going to be working on with this is a cool, unique strum pattern that utilizes chunking. Now, if you're not chunking with chunking, if you're not comfortable with chunking, be sure to check out a description below. I've got a link to a chunking video that I did. It's a tricky technique and requires a bunch of practice, and I think that video can help in terms of unlock the potential of chunking, but we'll be using it throughout this pattern. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what the pattern at least appears like. And so it looks something like this, as 1 bar of it. And let's just look at it from the standpoint of what the motions are. The symbol that looks like a 3/4 of a square is symbolizing a down strum, taking our hand and moving it downward. The little 3/4 or 2/3 of a triangle is symbolizing an up strum, just bringing our finger back up. Now the chords there, you'll notice the first thing that's listed is 7, 5, 5, 5 in terms of tab. Again, we read from bottom to top when we're communicating tablature. So that means 7 on the G string with our ring finger and bar across 5 with our index. And I like to lay my middle finger across the index as well, just to make it a little bit easier. And so we're going to start by doing a down strum there. And then you'll notice the next thing is another down strum, but with all X's, which is that famed chunk. So we're going to go down, chunk. Now what's important is you'll notice it's down and then another down for that chunk. Anytime you see 2 symbols written consecutively, the other symbol will take place as a miss between them. Meaning we have a down strum followed by a second down strum. That means we need to come up and miss the strings in between. So the first 2 notes are down, miss, chunk. Moving on, we've got an up strum. Now you see there's a second up strum. So we're going to do a miss, up, and then we're going to do another chunk going down, and then another up strum. So that whole measure is down, miss, chunk, up, miss, up, chunk, up. A little bit faster, it sounds something like this. And if we repeat it, you can hear that's the sound of this song in terms of the rhythm that we're using. And what's really fun is if you look at the next measure here, it's the same exact rhythm with the same chords, still sitting on that D minor. So the whole first two measures sound something like this. Now, if you're really struggling with getting the chunk, but you want to be able to strum this part for, a duet or whatever else, it's okay to substitute those chunk strums with just traditional down strums. And then our strum pattern will look something like this. It'll be down, down, up, down, up, which is our basic calypso pattern, as we call it, which I actually have a link in the description below covering that basic strum pattern in the event that the chunk is still, challenging. A lot of links in the description below with this video, but there's a lot of techniques that are being used. So the first two measures sound something like that, right? Well, if we look at the next two measures, we'll see that they're saying a C chord with it now, but it's exactly the same pattern. And it's the same pattern the whole way through. So once you have that down, chunk up, chunk up, you're good to go. That's it. That's all you'll need for the rhythm side of things. So this next chord, the C chord, is a lot like a B flat chord. Take our index finger and bar it over the 3rd fret of the E and the A strings. Add our middle finger here on the 4th fret of the C string, and you'll notice my fingers will kind of make a little circle right here because this finger is bending back and this one is coming over. And that takes a little bit of practice to get the flexibility with the fingers. Mine didn't look like this when I started with it because the fingers don't feel very comfortable when you first start doing this. Then we're going to take the ring finger and place it on the 5th fret of the G string there. So we have 5, 4, 3, 3, index finger on that partial bar. It's okay to bar all the way across if you're more comfortable with it, but I find it easier to just bar the 2 strings that I need to bar. Now we're going to do the exact same pattern. So down, chunk up, chunk up, down, chunk up, chunk up, which is pretty great. We're going to go to the next chord. Love this next chord because it's this, just moved down 2 frets. Exactly the same shape, just moved down 2. 3 with the ring finger on the G, 2 on the C with the middle finger. 1 is barred across with the E and the A strings using the index. It's the dreaded B flat chord, and it's played exactly the same way as that C was that we were using earlier. It's okay to do the full bar again, but I like to use just that finger. And a tip is to get as close as you can to that fret wire because it makes it a lot easier to play. Okay, so there's that B flat chord. Pretty straightforward. Then we go to the last set of 2, and there is a little change in this one. We're going to start with an A chord, middle finger here on 2 of the G, and index finger here on 1 of the C. We're going to do the same down, chunk up, chunk up. But then on the second set, we're going to take off the middle finger and play an A7 chord. So it's 0, 1, 0, 0. Do the same thing, down, chunk up, chunk up. So the entire thing sounds something like this. Now, as you increase the speed, you might notice it's really hard to change from this chord to this chord to this chord full speed. And the reason is because no one really expects you to actually jump from an up strum on one chord to the down strum on the next. And there's a cheat and a trick that we use that we oftentimes don't talk about because it only comes out when we're playing it fast. And what that is on the very last up strum before a chord change. Instead of coming up on the chord and then immediately switching and going down on the next, which will result in buzzing and bad sounds and it's impossible to do, right? What you'll actually do is on that last up, you'll remove the pressure a little bit off the fingers, play up as a mute, which is just because your fingers are coming off a little bit and they're actually moving towards the next chord. And so this is a trick where you'll notice people go and make the switch happen as they're doing the up strum. So you can hear I'm doing that little muted up. This is a crazy technique because when you try to do it really slowly, it's really hard to do. It's actually kind of a product of practicing this. So if you notice that you're starting to do this subconsciously, it's a good thing. And if this sounds so crazy, it's okay. Just try working on it, gradually increasing the speed. And you'll notice you'll get to a point where it's really difficult to do an up on one chord and a down on the next. So what we end up doing is on that up strum, we're moving our hand towards that next chord. We're not quite pushing the strings so that we can get that muted sound. And that's kind of the trick that we use. So moving on though, there's another variation on this. We're going to play some other versions of these chords. So when we get to the solo section, we're going to be playing variants on each one of these three chords. For the D minor, we're going to be playing a D minor 7, which is middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the G string, ring finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, index here on the 1st fret of the E, and pinky here on the 3rd fret of the A. Same pattern. Now, this chord's kind of a pain. Next one is super easy because all that is all open. We're going to play a C6. Same pattern. Down, chunk up, down, chunk up, chunk up. Exactly the same going on here. Then we're going to go to B flat major 7, which will be 3 on the G string with our ring finger, 2 on the C string with our middle, and then instead of barring like we were before, we're just going to be on the 1st fret of the E string, leaving the A open. So we have 3, 2, 1, 0. Same pattern. And then the very last chord of this variation is a C sharp diminished. It's really just an A7 chord where we don't have an A note in it. And so what we do for that is we take our index, place on the 1st fret of the C string, take our pinky, place on the 4th fret of the A string. So 0, 1, 0, 4. And we do the exact same pattern we've been doing. We do it for the 2. So the alternate chord sounds something like this. Right? Pretty cool sound. Now to end the whole song, we go back into the main chords all the way through with the melody. And the very, very, very last measure, we're going to play our D minor at the 7, 5, 5, 5 that we were doing before. And we're just going to go down, up. And then what I like to do is immediately after that up, mute the strings. Really important to get that because it gives you that super, super cool, fast ending. So what I do there is I do my down and then up, and then I take these fingers and release the tension. And that gets you your ending strum that's used. So those are all of the different parts, played with the melody, played with the chords. It's a lot of stuff to work on. And so as you're practicing it, just keep in mind that it's good to work on one section at a time, get comfortable with it, and then move on to the next. I really suggest if you've got a friend that plays ukulele that you guys try to work on it together because it's easier if you break down the parts. It's also kind of fun to say, hey, you do the melody picking, but I'll do the solo picking. And I'll do the melody strumming and you do the solo strumming or whatever else. It can be a lot of fun to jam out on this song and try different things. So remember, for the complete tab download, check out my Patreon page, which is linked down below. There we'll also be voting for next month's song, and every month we vote on a new song as chosen by members of the Patreon. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys next month for the next song tutorial based on whatever you choose. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you guys later.